Hi everyone, I'm going to be sharing a few links here, connecting a few dots, and what's happening is really serious, and these are the times for action. You know, I'm sick to death of reading the moans and the groans on Twitter about this and that, and lots of people moaning and lots of people groaning, and really nothing very much happening, very few people acting. And it seems to me that, you know, action will amount to riots in the streets and people tearing down their own communities, is usually the way this goes. I'm sorry, Britain, we move on from the riots, okay? Move on from the riots. They do nothing but give more power to the criminals governing us that instigate the riots in the first place. So, here's a guy that's doing something, the Benician, okay? Michael. I'm going to read this out to you. I'll leave you the link. I'll be leaving you the links to everything that I share here. So do your own research, okay? Summons to be issued against every criminal MP. The barrister who we have engaged is preparing to have summonses issued against every MP charged in the private criminal prosecution which alleges multiple COVID-19 84 crimes against the people. They will lay the information as soon as the drafting of the paperwork is completed, and the summonses will be issued on the same day, requiring every defendant to appear in court to answer to the charges soon afterwards. Just imagine the hoo-ha's that's going to cause. In the event it transpires, all being well, by the end of this week, as anticipated. So, please make sure you spread the news far and wide. In addition, I'm delighted to say that our numbers are now growing exponentially, and the momentum is about to turn in our favour when every MP knows that the common law adjudged parliamentary privilege to be automatically vitiated by their acts of fraud, treason and genocide against the people from the 31st of the 1st, 2020 to the present day. To date, 10 MPs have resigned since they all received notice that the people were holding them to account for their crimes, but I strongly suggest that number will rise before we lay the charges. Watch this space for all the latest developments as and when they happen. Workplace remedy for mask diktats. Meanwhile, legally unenforceable demands that people wear face masks at work are becoming increasingly common and should be dealt with in a simple administrative process using the common law to establish the indisputable facts, which I'm in process of drafting a detailed template for. However, in simple terms, if you are threatened with the sack for refusing to wear a mask, you need to send your employer a notice of conditional acceptance, promising to wear a mask if they provide you with the following. 1. Evidence that masks prevent infection. 2. Evidence that masks don't cause oxygen deprivation, which can lead to seizures. 3. Evidence that breathing in your own carbon dioxide does not cause bacterial infections and respiratory disorders. 4. Evidence that wearing masks does not cause stress and anxiety. 5. Evidence that wearing masks prevented the spread of the Spanish flu. 6. Evidence that dismissal for not wearing a mask at work would not represent a material breach of the Equality Act, which entitles you to claim compensation for discrimination as well as unfair dismissal. 7. Evidence that the government lurgy has ever been proven to exist. 8. Evidence that the Coronavirus Act and the regulations which arose out of it are not adjudged to be repugnant and void under the common law. 9. Evidence that it is not a crime ancillary to genocide to collaborate with government policy which has already resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths in care homes and hospitals. 10. Evidence that the government has not relied upon fraudulent data to frighten the population into fearful compliance with its legally unenforceable diktats. Potential damages claim. Needless to say, they will not be able to provide you with what you ask for, but you will have shown that they are unable to justify their actions, which render them liable for all potential damages caused if they try to dismiss you as per the common law. Nevertheless, even if they do, by implementing such a strategy, you will have already established the basis to successfully challenge them in an employment tribunal, as they would almost certainly back down before judgment when faced with the realistic prospect of having to cough up far more in damages than they pay you for your work. Once I have completed the template for a simple 3-notice process, I will post it on this blog. People power rising. Before I disappear for a few days to submerge myself into the final drafting of the criminal allegations against Parliament, with a view to having the information ready to lay by the end of the week, I feel compelled to promise you this. The power of the people is rising in the north, south, east and west of these ancient isles, and there is nothing that this criminal government can do to stop it. When the rallying cry comes, just make sure you are ready to join the People's Union of Britain in totalitarian non-compliance with tyranny and nationwide non-violent direct action, under the protection of the Magna Carta 2020. As my friend and fellow warrior Mick Cahill recently pointed out, COVID-19 1984 ends when we all say no and refuse to comply without exceptions. If we get a shift on and achieve that nationwide over the next few weeks, we'll have the Cabinet under house arrest before Christmas, with genocide tribunals set for early in the new year. Therefore, if I was the government's senior legal advisor, I'd advise that every Cabinet Minister has every reason to start bricking it, despite the unlawful void and murderous licence to kill bill, which is, in any event, emphatic confirmation that Parliament is literally legislating to commit the most heinous of crimes. In addition, I'd also advise them that the notorious Venetian recalcitrant has a growing army of very angry people from every British demographic, passionately supporting his action to dissolve this Parliament on the ground that a series of the most heinous common law crimes have been committed by every MP who did not oppose the legalisation of crimes against their own people. Moreover, it is now impossible to deny that the UK government has implicitly declared war against us all in the most deceitful, treacherous and cowardly of ways. When karma comes a-calling, I wouldn't fancy being in their shoes for all the backs in Wuhan. Totalitarian non-compliance. So, thank you very much, Michael of Benicia. I fully stand with you and by you and support this action, and it's time for the rest of Britain to do the same. And the first thing that people can do is to share this post, okay, and inform other people. Now, myself, as people know, I've been sharing widely the petition, which still today only has, 120 odd signatures, which is really disgusting, because, nothing changes by one action alone. There needs to be a variety, a multitude of actions that we can all do in order to support what Michael's doing here. And my stance is that basically going for the jugular, because they went for the jugular in order to establish themselves as a government, this present criminal cabal, and equally the criminal cabal opposition that now is Labour. And as I've said previously, we have more evidence to support our lawful suspicion of a rigged postal vote that did give this government its alleged landslide victory and full control over Parliament. We have more suspicion to support, more evidence to support our lawful suspicion than Tony Blair and George Bush had to support their criminal plan to invade Iraq. Okay, that's the fact of it. The fact of it that lawful suspicion warrants arrest, investigations and prosecutions. And as I say, we have a wealth of it here. Now, it is disturbing that this has received so few votes, so few signatures, 131, in face of the evidence. Because let's just look at the facts. You know, I'll leave you the link to this. I'll leave you the link to Ricky Coxon's article, WordPress article, is there for you to click on and read it yourself, okay? But we have to accept the fact that without this landslide victory, this government would not have the powers that it has. At most, they were looking at another coalition government. That's at best, right? They were looking at another coalition government. Certainly not full control of Parliament to the extent that they can roll out that evil coronavirus bill and then followed by a bill to give themselves rights to commit war crimes abroad and then another bill to commit acts of terror against the British people, including children. Okay, so the fact of it is, we were robbed of our democracy. We were robbed of our democracy, and that robbery allowed Labour then, the far right of Labour, Tory Labour, covert Tory Labour, to ditch Jeremy Corbyn. Oh, you lost us the election because of your anti-Semitism and because of this and because of your evil policies. You know, the evil policies, your dangerous policies of giving people a fair wage and, you know, investing in Britain's infrastructure, restoring sovereignty to the people, giving everybody free fibre broadband. Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous policies, right? So off goes Labour. So both parties, the far right of both parties, Labour and the Tory party, both of them together have benefited from this election. The far right extremists have benefited from the rig, the lawfully suspected rig. Okay, that is what has happened. So we do need to challenge it, and I hope to send this to the Supreme Court. I want at least 1 million signatures, okay, for the Supreme Court to take any notice of it. We can only send it to the Supreme Court because, according to the evidence supporting the suspicion of a coup, there is no other authority that we can trust, and this government has threatened to destroy the Supreme Court. But at present, the Supreme Court still stands and we need to make use of it while it is still there. Okay? Because we have no other authority to turn to. They're all either compromised or complicit with this tyranny that is now overtaken our country. And, you know, it's time people woke up to what a Tory actually is. This is what a Tory is. Conservative Party's nickname, Tories, originated in Ireland in the mid-16th century, deriving from the Gaelic word Torhaide, which meant plunderer, robber, thief, barbarian and yobbo. And that is exactly what the people of Britain allegedly have just voted for by a landslide. Are we surprised to see the coronavirus bill? No. It's exactly what we would expect. Now, I made another video recently about this school meals, lack of school meals for children during the half-term Christmas break, and how the whole country is in uproar about it. And, you know, somebody got a petition together, and within a few days it had received 750,000 signatures, MPs calling each other scum over it and blah blah blah. And in the show notes here underneath the video, I've made a comparison. Imagine an innocent man is facing a death sentence, and instead of standing by the evidence proving his innocence and righteously demanding a retrial, the whole nation is instead going apeshit over the fact he won't be getting a meal before his execution. That is where Britain's at right now, and it is sick beyond comprehension. A nation under mass hypnosis, demanding a pillow to muffle the sound as they get shot in the head. And I express my righteous anger, because it is absolutely despicable. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't sign a petition demanding free school meals for the poorest children during the half-term break. That is not what I'm saying there. What I am saying is that if you're going to sign that petition, then surely the most important petition is equally as important, is to challenge the rights of this government to deny any child free school meals or to do any of the horrific things that they are doing. Because when we look at the facts of it, our children are facing deprivation, severe deprivation, misery, poverty, illness, death, loss of their rights. Feed children their rights. Okay? And we've got a whole nation that is ignorant of the fact that these children who've been condemned to, at least, according to this government's own mouth, 50 years austerity, right? Instead of challenging the people who've issued that judgment against them, instead of challenging that judgment and protecting the children's meals this Christmas and after, but no, instead the nation will only act to give them their meal. So we've got a little petty concern that it amounts, when you're looking at the real horrors facing our children, the fact that they can be kidnapped, tortured, raped and murdered by this government as an act of leverage against people they hope to control, okay, because there's no exemption for children in that bill. So we have to accept that is a risk equally against children as adults, right? But the whole nation, instead of challenging this government fundamentally to protect the children forever, no, hundreds of thousands of people instantly will sign a petition to make sure they get the last meal before the equivalent of a death sentence. And don't forget, we've got children all going to be threatened now with this gene editing vaccine. A vaccine that even ordinarily has more potential of harm against children than COVID-19. That actually the risks posed by the vaccine are far greater than the risks posed by COVID-19. That's illegal, right? Under common law, that is illegal. The remedy can never be more deadly than the cure. And, you know, and what Andy Wakefield is sharing here, and he knows what he's talking about, okay? What he's sharing here is valid, important information, and it is about time that people started listening to it, instead of listening to the likes of, you know, Matt Poppycock, who knows nothing. The guy's a total idiot. They're all a bunch of Etonian idiots, half-wits. But they've got this whole country on a stranglehold. So, you know, there's the action to support the Petition here and what they're doing. There's the action to sign the petition, to get back our democracy, hold these people to account. Don't forget, we're dealing with the government. The slightest suspicion against any of us, we've got police banging on our doors, okay? You're not wearing a mask. People being arrested and fined. People going about their lawful business. As David Cameron said, the time has come when people who are law-abiding citizens think that they can, you know, be free from arrest. That's coming to an end. Well, the guy, he must be a prophet, mustn't he? David Cameron. No. We need to hold them to account. Now, so what else are you going to do if you're not going to stand by the Petition, if you're not going to stand by, if you can't even sign a petition to challenge the people that we lawfully suspect have rigged, stolen our democracy, stolen an election landslide win that has led even to the people's choice of leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, being axed. And Starmer didn't question it. Instead, we know Starmer's complicit now with this government because we have the evidence of him forcing Labour MPs to abstain, in their majority to abstain from voting against this bill. Right, so we know Starmer is criminally complicit. And the Petition is absolutely right. Every single MP that voted for or abstained in voting for, or abstained in voting against this bill, every single one of you are guilty of an open conspiracy to commit acts of terror against innocent British people. And as I've explained in my previous video as well, that this is a government whose own backers, the government themselves, their own backers, are actually right now placing bets against the British pound. Right? On the one hand, they're claiming if any of us so much as go on strike, okay, and threaten the economy, they have rights, their authorities have rights to hire covert agents to kidnap, torture, rape and kill us or our children. Okay, because we've organised a strike, that puts us on the list, basically. But it's all right for them and their cronies to be lining up in their hundreds to bet huge amounts against the British pound. The further the fat pound falls after Brexit, the richer they will become. That's the hypocrisy, the deadly, disgusting, criminal levels of hypocrisy that is going on, that they're actually betting against the British pound. And I tell you now, do not be surprised when the pound in your pocket drops in value to 25p and you're still working for £10 an hour, which suddenly you'll be back, you'll all be on a minimum wage of, in real terms, £2.50 an hour, because your pound will only be worth 25p. Because the lower it drops, the more money these people make. I'll leave you the links. If you haven't been paying attention for the last few years to see them all lining up to place their bets against the British economy, against Britain's economy, the more the deeper Britain's economy crashes, the more money the globalists of this world are going to make. So, you know, you better wake up and get active and get signing and get behind the Petition. It's your choice, people. It is your choice. Now, moving on, there's this UK column news, and I'm just going to play you this little clip here.
Right now, David, let's have a look at this. Who's Britain's alleged Prime Minister in waiting? Rishi Sunak. Now, we're very tight for time, so just as quickly as possible, please.
Okay, thanks to the good people at the Fresh Start Foundation, investigating Boleskine House came on this. So the ferociously intelligent new cabinet minister, the Maharaja of the Dales, it reports here that he's a multi-millionaire. He's worked in California, India and Britain, including for Goldman Sachs. And then it says he went on to set up his own business, Stellamy Partners, a private investment partnership, 2010, with an initial fund of 536 million. So the Financial Times picks this up from a different perspective. Reports Patrick de Gorse, an ex-Merrill Lynch banker who co-founded Children's Investment Fund with Richard Horn, has raised more than $700 million, £446 million for his new hedge fund, Stellamy Partners. So this makes it a huge launch. Then it mentions where the name came from. Theleme, which derives its name from the utopian abbey described by Renaissance humanist Francois Rabelais in his book The Life of Gargantua and of Pantagruel, will soft close when it hits 1.2 billion. So I thought, okay, that's an interesting choice of name for Rishi's company. What's happening there? So if you go to this book, a couple of interesting points. One, the inscription set upon the great gate of Theleme included the following: "Gold give us, God forgive us, and from all woes relieve us, that we the treasure may reap of pleasure, and shun whatever's grievous. Gold give us, God forgive us." This gives me a slightly uneasy feeling, to put it mildly, but it got much worse, because we then looked at what the people who inhabited the fictional Abbey of Theleme believed in. It was quite striking. So how the Thelemites were governed and their manner of living, the description was as follows: all their life was spent not in laws, statutes, or rules, but according to their own free will and pleasure. They rose out of their beds when they thought good. They ate and drank and laboured and slept when they had mind to do it and were disposed to do it. None did awake them, none did offer them constraint to eat or drink or on any other thing, for so had Gargantua established it. In all their rule, the strictest tie of their order, there was but one clause to be observed: do what thou wilt. And of course, do what thou wilt is the shorthand for the Thelema religion of Satanist Aleister Crowley. How interesting it is that the Chancellor, who may well be our Prime Minister, names his company after the religion of Satanist Aleister Crowley. I wonder what the significance of that is, gentlemen.
So, there you go. Now, don't tell me that, this company has been named just coincidentally by accident. Oh, we didn't really understand it was connected to Satanism. We know for a fact, and especially people like myself that's worked extensively in child rights as a CSA survivor, I am pretty damned sure by now of what is governing Britain, what has infested and infected every single office of power in Britain, if not the world, by now. We've only got to look what was going on with Epstein, the evidence, again, lawfully valid evidence supporting the very strong suspicion that the guy was working with intelligence. Mossad has been named as his handler. We know that such tactics were used during the run-up to the Iraq War, when British intelligence was asked to find dirt on UN officials in order to gain leverage to force the UN to agree to invasion of Iraq. And that was all leaked by Katharine Gunn. And again, I'll leave you the link to that story under this. You check it out, get yourself informed, spend it, give yourself a few hours just to get informed. And you do well to start watching UK column news. Turn off the BBC, turn off the mainstream media. Get on to UK column news. You look at the mainstream media, you're looking at cardboard cutouts, being given a script, reading out what they've been told to read out to promote and push propaganda narratives. They are actually a bunch of complicits, criminals, who really also equally need to be charged with an open conspiracy to commit crimes against humanity, because the BBC are promoting propaganda. And Sean Atwood here has been doing a series of interviews recently with Ron Swanson, who has been exposing the deep net, the deep web, the darkest net, and what is going on there with children. And it is horrific. And a lot of people are like, oh no, I can't look at that. Oh no, I can't listen to that. You know, well, all you people, you need to get a backbone, because what you find too hard to even think about, little children are suffering for a reality in this world that ignorant people like yourselves support in so many ways, just by going along with the narratives, by putting on your blinkers, by refusing to accept reality, by refusing to get up off your backside and support people like Michael here, refusing to even sign a petition to stand up for your rights to a true democratic vote. No, you'll just let it all pass. You'll have a moan on Twitter. You'll find your safe little angsts to support, like, oh, the poorest children aren't getting a meal over Christmas. But don't deal with the real problem of why the children aren't getting a meal over Christmas, okay? Don't deal with that problem. Don't deal with the problem of why children are so poor in the first place, right? Don't deal with that problem. Just deal with the symptom, okay? The safe little symptom that the BBC has said, oh, okay, yeah, that's really bad. That even, you know, that the Guardian and the Independent are saying, oh, it is so bad, those poor children not getting food over Christmas. We won't care about the fact that they're not going to be getting any food for the next 50 years, except by rations, okay? We won't care about that. We won't care that the government that's in has been elected according to a lawfully suspect rigged election. Like I say, more evidence to support that than Blair and Bush had for invading Iraq, right? That's the fact of it. And if you can't stand by that fact, people, if you are instead prepared to tolerate this kill bill, this act of terror against every single British citizen, that even Donald Trump wouldn't dare to put forward such a bill in America, right? You've got to be crazy. You've got to be, like I say, you know, as I've stated under here, dozy Fs, right? Dozy Fs. Go and be up in arms about the children not getting their food over Christmas, but fail to support the actions. And unfortunately, you know, this is what is behind the scenes. We're talking Satanism. So it is very, very serious. It is very, very serious when we have the Chancellor of the Exchequer, his company is actually named after a Satanist philosophy, basically. And, you know, when you look at this company, his hedge fund, nobody really explains what his hedge fund is. Felony Partners. 700 million. They've raised, an investment fund has raised more than 700 million. It's got nothing to do with the children's investment fund, okay? That's just who's joined it. You know, the people that did that have joined Rishi Sunak here. Rishi Sunak. 700 million for his new hedge fund. Well, what is his new hedge fund based on? Equity hedge fund launch. The biggest since the financial crisis began. Are they all betting against the British pound? How can we have a Chancellor of the Exchequer that is so compromised, that is so involved with the very powers that have been robbing us? That he is directly involved with the kind of people who are going to make money the lower the pound in our pocket falls. That literally they are waiting to crash. They've already crashed the economy with this facade of COVID-19. And, you know, I have another article here Again, from an NHS doctor, Malcolm Kendrick. Read it. The whole thing. It's a scam. They're locking people down on a scam. They've robbed people of businesses and jobs on a scam. And then a huge, massive, major exaggeration of what's turned out to be an illness that's actually less deadly and dangerous to the bulk of the population than regular flu. And yes, you'll hear people talking about, oh, they've had a friend, you know, only in the 30s, died of flu. That happens. It happens. People have been dying of flu for decades, of all ages. But when it comes to people under the age of 70, healthy people, this has far less impact, far less danger than average flu. That's the fact of it. You need to get just with the facts. Turn off the lying BBC. Listen to what people are saying. Listen to what Andy Wakefield is saying. Listen to the experts, to the real experts, not the hand-picked, cherry-picked experts, the compromised, complicit experts, the kind of people, you know, who studied at Cambridge University. I don't know what it is about Cambridge University. They seem to produce a lot of high-profile, high-class professional people, paedophiles. People who end up working in government. People who end up devising public policy about how to deal with children. Turn out to be paedophiles. Oh, what a coincidence. What a coincidence. None of this is coincidence. It's time to lose your thoughts about coincidence. Everything's a coincidence, isn't it, when it comes to crimes being committed by this cabal? It's all a coincidence, isn't it? It is a total coincidence that the Tories privatised or nationalised Post Office. So it's mostly owned probably in Tory hands by now. It's a total coincidence that the Tories broke the rules to hire IDOCs, isn't it? Without putting that out to tender. IDOCs to manage and control and count the postal vote. That's a total coincidence, isn't it? It is a total coincidence that Peter Lilly, MP for Hitchin, Tory MP, that it's his group. Okay? It is a total coincidence. It's a total coincidence that, you know, Dominic Raab and Laura Kusenberg are there talking about how the postal vote's looking really bad for Labour 2 days before the general election. It's a total coincidence that their Tory-controlled company IDOCs and its offshoot Hallows were in charge of managing and counting the postal vote, isn't it? It's a total coincidence that the postal vote in 2019 inexplicably doubled. And it's a total coincidence, isn't it, that it was the postal vote that swung these Tories a landslide win in all of these constituencies, isn't it? It's all a coincidence. It's a coincidence that, you know, Rishi Sunak names his hedge fund Thelemy, isn't it? And it's a total coincidence that Thelemy just happens to be a fictional story based on the very real story of Aleister Crowley, isn't it? It is a total coincidence. Because, you know, he didn't follow that, did he? That was not his law, was it? Aleister Crowley wasn't a real person. There's no such thing as Satanism. There aren't a host of satanic temples set up in central London, are they? And everything that Ron Swanson's explaining to us here, and with Sean Atwood, it is all a fiction and a fantasy, isn't it? None of it is really happening. Of course, rich people, of course, people who are doctors and professional people, politicians, bankers, financiers, they aren't getting together to abuse and torture and kill children, are they? Renard Bernard, the ex-Dutch financier, he was just telling a pack of lies, wasn't it? When he talks about how when he reached the very top echelons of finance, he was invited to take part in exclusive ceremonies involving murder of children. And it is a total coincidence that we are now governed by a party that has given itself rights to abduct, torture, rape and kill even our children. Okay, that is all a coincidence. So, you know, you do need to get very, very, very serious, people. And like I say, what's it going to be? Are you going to wait for riots and guns on your streets? Or are you going to stand by the law and behave lawfully in the way that Michael has advised here, in the way that I have offered the support there? Okay, that you can sign this petition, you can share it. And it needs to be signed in our millions in order for the Supreme Court to take notice and for every MP to be on their guard, and our action will be another bow in Michael's arrow here. So all I can say is hats off to everybody that has the courage and a backbone to stand up for what is right. Hats off to the Bernician, to UK Column, to the people who have the courage to sign a petition, the people who dare to care. Okay? Because otherwise we're lost. And we have this one window. So in the next month, you're going to have to get really active, because things are moving faster than you can even think, people. But fortunately, there are people on the ball thinking. So you're going to have to listen. You're going to have to listen to the people that are on the ball and are explaining things to you. We're doing it for a reason. I'm not doing this because I love the sound of my own voice. I'm not doing this for money or for fame or for power. I am sharing the information for you to get active. Because what else can I do? What else can I do? You can lead a horse to water. You can't make it drink if it's a stupid, idiotic horse. So it will die. And that's unfortunately the way it is, people.